This past Sunday, we got one of the greatest Super Bowl games of all time as the Kansas City Chiefs won their third title in 5 years and second in a row, beating the San Francisco 49ers 25 to 22 in overtime. We'll be going over the game in its entirety in this video, quarter by quarter. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. This is the Sports Ball Network, and this is our Super Bowl 58 recap. So, before I hop into the first quarter, want to give a real quick overall review of the game. Patrick Mahomes threw for 333 yards, two touchdowns, and an interception in this game. He rushing as well with 66 yards on 9 carries. Isaiah Pacheco had 18 carries in this game for 59 yards. He also contributed 6 receptions for 33 yards. Travis Kelsey, after a very quiet first half, which only saw him get 1 reception for 1 yard, ended the game with 9 receptions for 93 yards, leading the team. Then, in terms of the Kansas City defense, they recovered 2 fumbles, had a sack, and ultimately clamped down on San Francisco for most of the game, which of course led to Kansas City winning. On the other side, Brock Purdy had a pretty decent game, 255 yards and a touchdown in the air for him. Christian McCaffrey on the ground had 22 carries for 80 yards. He also led the team in receiving 8 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. No for San Francisco got over 50 yards aside from him. Brandon Ayuk was the next highest receiver receptions for 49 yards. Francisco only recovered one of Kansas City's 5 fumbles. They did have 3 sacks and an interception, though. The defense did play well enough to bring this game to overtime and ultimately was gassed at the end. And with that, let's get into the quarter by quarter breakdown, starting with the first quarter here. Things in this game started off pretty quiet, all things considered. No one scored, but there were 2 fumbles. One was Christian McCaffrey fumbling on the opening drive for San Francisco. As San Francisco was marching down the field, they had pretty good field position at the time, but Christian McCaffrey just had the ball punched out of his hands, and Kansas City recovered it, switching the momentum in this game pretty early. That being said, Kansas City quickly went 3 and out. San Francisco then was unable to do much either. Kansas City got the ball back and they went 3 and out again. Then San Francisco got the ball back and started marching down the field and the corner. Going into the second quarter, San Francisco wrapped up their drive with the longest field goal in Super Bowl history to that point. Jake Moody hitting a 55-yarder to open the scoring, giving the Niners a 3-0 lead. Kansas City on their next drive looked as though they were going to stall out until Patrick Mahomes threw a 52-yard bomb to Mecole Hardman, who was able to haul it in at the San Francisco 9. Then Isaiah Pacheco fumbled the ball on the next play. San Francisco recovered. And obviously, there was a heated exchange between Travis Kelsey and Andy Reid. Travis was pulled on the play. The tight end who was replacing him missed the block, which caused the fumble. I've seen this whole interaction kind of get blown up a lot. I think it's a little out of proportion, but not going to get too much into that. Then San Francisco went 3 and out. Kansas City went 3 and out. And then San Francisco scored a touchdown off of a trick play where Juwan Jennings threw a 21-yard pass to Christian McCaffrey. And this touchdown was really impressive, particularly for Christian McCaffrey. He looked as though it was going to be a 5 or 6 yard loss, but it's Christian McCaffrey. He turned on the Jets and he was gone. Uh, Kansas City then, on their final possession of the half, marched down the field 13 plays, 65 yards with a field goal, and that wrapped things up. So, first half of this game, it was mostly San Francisco. They went in with a 10-3 lead, and they looked like they were the better team. And you'll see that kind of prove true for most of this game. Like San Francisco was the better team, but they shot themselves in the foot, so to speak. It was really San Francisco's mistakes that prevented this score from being any higher. And honestly, those mistakes really haunted the team all game long. And we'll get more into that in the second half and the final breakdown of this game here. So, getting into the third quarter, Kansas City started things off. They received the ball, and Patrick Mahomes promptly fumbled the snap, start things off. Then he threw an interception on the third play of the game. It was his first interception in a while in the playoffs. Beforehand, he was perfect, and he had not turned the ball over once throughout the 2023-2024 playoffs. So that was very surprising to see. San Francisco, though, was unable to get anything done. They punted it. Kansas City then punted. San Francisco then punted. And then Kansas City, on their subsequent drive, marched down the field on 9 plays. And Harrison Butker beat the field goal record that Jake Moody set earlier in this game, hitting a 57-yarder to bring the score to within 4 points. San Francisco and Kansas City would then trade punts. But the Kansas City punt got really interesting really fast when the ball bounced off of the foot of a San Francisco player, and it was Kansas City who recovered the ball. And that was really a back-breaking play for San Francisco. Another mistake which cost them points this time because Kansas City then promptly scored on the next play. Patrick Mahomes throwing a touchdown pass to Marquez Valdez-Scantling to get their first lead of the game. San Francisco, though, would respond. They started driving in the end of the third quarter and going into the fourth quarter here were able to score a touchdown off of a 10-yard pass from Brock Purdy to Juwan Jennings, who had a fantastic game. And that, of course, gave San Francisco a 16-13 lead. However, another mistake by the 49ers prevented them from converting on the extra point. Jake Moody's kick was low on the extra point, so it was blocked. That meant that Kansas City only needed a field goal to tie things up, which they got on their next drive. Then San Francisco and Kansas City traded field goals to end the game and bring us to overtime here. In overtime, San Francisco won the coin toss. They chose to receive the ball first. And I've seen a lot of debate on whether or not this was the right decision. And before I break down the overtime period, I'll just give my 2 cents here. If you take the ball second using the playoff overtime rules, the new rules that were implemented this year, the benefits are pretty apparent. You would see what your opponent's able to do on their drive. You'd be able to respond accordingly. You'd have all the information you need in order to go and potentially win the game or prolong the game if needed. You would know what you need to do on offense. And so long as you trust your defense in order to hold off the opposing team, then the choice there is a pretty sound. Now, there are also benefits to taking the ball first in overtime in the new rules. You would obviously get first crack at scoring, and if you score a touchdown, you force your opponent into a situation where they have to in turn score a touchdown in order to stay in the game. You give your defense rest, and that is absolutely important considering you just played 60 minutes of football. And furthermore, in San Francisco's case, their defense was just on the field. So there's that as well. In addition, if you do only manage to kick a field goal or if you are unable to score, your defense then comes in with the knowledge that they have to make a stop or they have to hold the opponent to only a field goal in order to win or prolong the game. In addition to that, you also get, in the event of a tie, the first chance to go and win the game. And in the new rules, if there is a tie after the first 2 drives, the next score wins. So there are advantages to taking the ball first. In San Francisco's case, their defense just gave up a long drive, which resulted in the game time field goal going into overtime. They're tired. You have one of the best offenses in the league with some of the best skill players in the NFL. Uh, I can see why you would elect to get the ball first and attempt to score a touchdown. Now, that's not to say that San Francisco does not deserve scrutiny for their overtime decision and their handling of the overtime period, specifically because the San Francisco staff and players were not aware of the new overtime rules. That's just not excusable. No bones about it. Can't make up any sort of excuses there. Kyle Shanahan, his staff, the team just needs to know the rules moving forward. They need to be better on that front. But that's besides the point. In overtime, San Francisco had a 7.5 minute drive, resulting in a field goal. They took the lead 22-19. But then, of course, we got some more Mahomes magic. Kansas City marched down the field, and Mecole Hardman, with 3 seconds left, caught the game-winning touchdown, winning Kansas City their second Super Bowl in the past 2 years and firmly cementing the team as a dynasty. So, what are the takeaways here, and what's next for these teams? For Kansas City, it's going to be really easy. They're a dynasty, and as long as Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback and Andy Reid is their head coach, they will always have a chance to win the Super Bowl. This was considered by many people to be the worst iteration of the Kansas City Chiefs that Patrick Mahomes has had to play with. The defense, though, was a top 5 unit. Let's keep that in mind. So even if this was the quote unquote worst iteration of the Chiefs, it was still an amazing team. But now Kansas City will go into the offseason. They'll be able to add more talent through the draft. I imagine they will pick up some more offensive players. They are the number one destination in the NFL. And yeah, they're a dynasty. For San Francisco, it's a lot tougher, particularly for Coach Kyle Shanahan, who now has the reputation as a choker. That is because in his past 3 Super Bowls, the one with Atlanta as a coordinator and the two with San Francisco, he has choked 10-point leads away in all 3 games. Atlanta was the 28-3 game. The first Kansas City Super Bowl, the Niners were up 20-10. They ended up losing 31-20. And then this Super Bowl, they were up 10-0, ended up losing 25-22 in overtime. Is that reputation deserved? I don't know. I think Kyle Shanahan overall coached a pretty good game, and it's hard to win a Super Bowl in the NFL. And against a team like Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Jerry Sneed, Steve Spagnuolo, just not everyone's going to win. And it's tough to beat those guys. So I don't necessarily think Coach Kyle Shanahan is a choker. But with that being said, there definitely could have been some decisions that he could have made a bit better. For Brock Purdy, he has solidified himself as the quarterback of the future for San Francisco. He had a good game, and he absolutely did enough to win this one. The Niners go into the offseason with cap issues. They may have to let some of their depth pieces or playmakers go. There will be questions on the offensive side of the ball on the line. Will Trent Williams come back for another season? Don't know. Will Christian McCaffrey potentially be on the decline? He has been phenomenal the past couple seasons, but he's also seen a lot of work and has hurt himself a couple times. George Kittle's getting up there in age. And overall, San Francisco goes into the offseason a little bit in transition. Of course, they're still one of the best teams in the NFC, but they're also in a very tough NFC West with a very young Rams team on the rise. Seattle with a bunch of options, and Arizona starting to build themselves up. So things will not be easy for San Francisco in 2024. And considering that they're going to have to compete with teams like Dallas, Detroit, Philadelphia next year, who says they get back to the Super Bowl? Not sure, but ultimately this season was a disappointment for San Francisco. And the fact that they did not get the title that they were gunning for just adds salt to the wound. With that, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We'll be bringing more of those long form video essay football videos back starting over the next couple weeks. Really looking forward to getting those launched once more. Want to thank you guys for joining us throughout the 2023 NFL season. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.